give me too much shit about it. Oh, Pantera. Yeah.
Vladimir.
Pantera is not to be discussed. That's a off-limits topic.
We'll have to get you on the show to talk Pantera. Mike's an interesting guy because he was an ex-racing car driver. He had a Pantera. I don't know why. He's got some really primitive equipment. I want to get Mike the Snake on to talk cars. Let's just see if we can hear him. Oh, it's terrible static, Mike.
I sent you an email, Archie.
Day and night I get these emails.
This is the guy who had the Pantera. Mike the Snake. Mike the Snake. Mike the Snake. You had a Pantera, didn't you?
What is that?
Oh, I did, yes.
He used to race.
I love your race car.
Pantera.
Love the race car, guys. We're going to do a bit of watch talk this morning. Going to go through the Christie's, or actually the Sotheby's auction today, not Christie's. The Sotheby's auction on important watches that's coming up in 3 days. Let's get the main intro started, and let's start the show. Thought I'd live stream here on the main channel. It's been a minute since I've live streamed on the main channel, so I thought, you know what, we'll do a bit of watch talk today. We didn't get a ton of watch talk on the live stream this morning, but let's see what's happening here at the Sotheby's Important Watches auction. So this is the auction that has a few pieces, I believe, of Sylvester Stallone's that are up for auction. I think that they're talking about the Grandmaster chime and a few other pieces that he has on this list for auction. But I'm going to go through a couple of lots that I find interesting. Obviously, review some of these lots with you guys. If there's anything you guys want to see in the chat, let me know. But I'm just only going to spend about an hour here. Wanted to talk about a few of these watches and yeah, just see where it goes. So let's have a starting look at the list. Obviously, we got a first on the list is a Tudor Black Bay 58, pretty normal watch. I mean, you got a Pepsi here, you got a Hulk. Obviously, you know, watches that we're pretty familiar with. Batman. We've got a previous gen Daytona, both in Panda as well as black. Nothing super interesting so far. Mostly kind of just modern Rolexes. Let's kind of stop here. Our first, well, I mean, the Patrici dial over here on the Zenith is nice, but you know, let's kind of look here at this date just 6605, so very very early date just, circa 1957. Estimate between 10,000 and 20,000. And look, this is a to me a pretty cool watch. You don't see a lot of solid gold date justs around anymore, so definitely a piece that can give you a bit of look. If you're not willing to spend into date money, you can definitely get this date just here in solid gold, which I think is a pretty decent option. However, I mean, the price wise, estimate 10,000 to 20,000. I mean, you're probably in 1803 money at that point. So I don't know if you're going to be picking up a solid gold date just, but still a pretty cool piece. You don't see a lot of solid gold date justs around. My actual favorite solid gold date justs are on the Jubilee. I like those better, but this is actually pretty nice. But 10 to 20, I mean, you'll probably be looking at 1803s. Say hi to a couple folks in the chat. We got Walking Moments. Nice to see you, Walking Moments. We got Seb Nelly. We got Astro Uzi. I bought a Grand Complication. I like it, but I'm too scared to wear it. My Tudor Colonel Panda is my daily. I'm waiting for an all gold Sabi below this. So Astro, I own a Patek Philippe 5320, which is a Grand Complication perpetual calendar. Yeah, I mean, do I wear it every day? No. Do I wear it often enough? Yes. I have it on the winder for a few days. I do wear it on the wrist for a few days. I've never really had really any issues. However, mine's a automatic perpetual calendar, so obviously would be different than if you had a manual wind perpetual calendar chronograph or any other piece you have. But depends on the Grand Complication. Let me know in the chat what you have, and we can talk about it. Walking Moments. All we have to do is decide what to do with the time that's given us. J.R.R. Tolkien. Very, very good. Very, very good comment. All right, guys. So this is the solid gold date just. Cool piece. 6605 from the 50s. 10 to 20. Yeah, look, it's a nice looking watch. I mean, You got your plastic, you got your plexiglass here as well, a little vintage vibe. Um, Obviously, this is not the Rolex box for the piece, and it's interesting. Let's see what they actually. So, for example, they describe it as with box, right? I mean, this is a bit. And they call it Rolex presentation box without a packaging, right? So, not the original box. I mean, obviously, this isn't the original box from the 50s. So, again, like as you're buying from auctions, you want to, for somebody who doesn't know anything about watches, they may go to this auction and like this watch and say, "Oh, it's got a box," right? Well, that's not really the original box for the watch. So, does does it take away from the watch? No, it doesn't necessarily. I mean, obviously, the watch will be priced as if, at least it should be priced as if it doesn't have a box. Rolex presentation box. I mean, you can buy those on eBay. You can buy them from anybody, basically. So, not really additive, I would say, to the mix. Not really sure if this paperwork is actually the paperwork for this watch. This looks more like 70s paperwork, but I could be wrong on the piece. But again, right, like you got to be super careful with auctions, guys. Like, and this is kind of why I'm doing this stream is just let's review some of these. If people have some serious interest in any of these watches, we can kind of talk about them, and definitely chime in the chat. I'll pull up all the chats if you want a super chat, pull those up as well. For those that don't know, Archie just ran his live stream about a few minutes ago. And so he's going to be a little busy, obviously with the evening tonight. So I thought I'd come here and hold the auctions, and maybe talk a bit about the auctions with everybody in the chat, and see where it goes. Walking moments. I'd rather buy the Swatch License to Kill 1989 GZ328. Let's have a look at that one. 1989 Swatch License to Kill. Let's have a look. License to Kill 1989. Well, not a bad looking swatch, man. Not a bad looking swatch indeed. So I would say it's a decent choice, man. That's a decent choice. All right, let's get back to this auction. Let's look at a couple more watches here. So solid gold date just, definitely a cool piece. This next piece, another date just. This is a tiger's eye. So it's a stone dial date just. We're kind of familiar with stone dial day dates. We see stone dial day dates often enough. But stone dial date just definitely existed. Tiger's Eye is one of my favorite stone dials. Definitely a cool. I think it's a cool material to use in the dial. Really, really nice effect. And I believe the Falcon's Eye, the new Yachtmaster 2 Falcon's Eye. For those that don't know, Falcon's Eye is actually a type of. I mean, it's related to Tiger's Eye. Still a really, really cool piece. I'll show you guys the Falcon's Eye here. For those that don't aren't familiar with that piece. So here on the screen is a Falcon's Eye. So you can kind of see that nice effect, that horizontal effect on the dial. Really, really nice. Yeah, Astros. Yeah, I've always been a huge fan of the Tiger's Eye. But when you kind of look at the Falcon's Eye, which is the newer version, and obviously a more modern watch than the Yachtmaster 2. Now, this watch, a lot of folks really, really want the Falcon's Eye piece, but apparently it's just really, really hard to get. I haven't seen too many of these on the secondary market. Yeah, the watch will be small. Like any of these tigers and these stone dials, right? Like you're talking generally, like, especially Tiger's Eye, you're talking vintage, right? You're talking 36 mil day dates as well as date just. Like there's not going to be in the the date just 40s or the date just the date date 40s or the date date 2s, for example, are not going to have necessarily all of the stone dials. They still make some stone dials. I believe the Eisenkeisel is in the 40 mil right now, but Tiger's Eye is definitely going to be in the 36. So if you are a fan of stone dials, you definitely have to probably look at more vintage pieces. Yeah, overall cool piece. Interesting bracelet. Not sure if this is obviously original to the watch. Doubt it is. Well, it says a Rolex mesh bracelet with full and class, so it could be potentially. It could be a bracelet that was period correct for the watch or part of the watch. But yeah, I mean 16018 they just Tiger's Eye, cool piece. Not, for me, again, I like the solid gold date just. Probably would have taken a different bracelet. Not the biggest fan of this, but still a really, really nice looking watch. Estimates between 20 and 40. Don't think it's going to go don't think it's going to go too high, but definitely want to look at that one. We got some more day dates. We got a day date Oyster Quartz. Now this is a pyramid. So this is using pyramid indices. So in day dates, you have also what's called the pyramid dial. So you can see here the indices The indices, a center called the center of the bracelet, center link collar of the bracelet, as well as the bezel, all have that pyramid design. And if you look at, and I can show you guys a pyramid dial day date, just to kind of give you a bit of contrast on what a pyramid dial day date looks like. Um, and you'll kind of see what I mean when I'm talking about pyramid dial versus, and because both of these would technically be considered pyramids, but this is a pyramid dial day date. And if you see here, as opposed to in the previous watch where the pyramid was centered around the pyramid centered around the indices, here on this day date, you have the pyramid dial. And so it's really the dial that has that pyramid texture as opposed to it being, in this auction piece on this oyster quartz day date, we have pyramid in other areas. Now, still pretty cool. Obviously, pretty flashy. Not probably for everybody, but definitely a piece that I think is unique. It's something that's a bit off the beaten path, and that's what I love about auctions, guys. Is you find a lot of pieces that aren't that are different, right? That are just something you don't see every day. We started off the auctions. You saw a bunch. We saw the Hulk. We saw the Pepsi stuff we see every day, right? Something like this, an oyster quartz pyramid design, not really very common. So definitely pretty interesting for me to see as I peruse the auction. Look, a nice looking piece. Not for everybody, I would say. Definitely for a certain buyer. But if you like your gold, you want something a bit quirky. Oyster quartz, the day date with pyramid design. Let's kind of skip through a few things. Now, this one I brought up with Archie. This one I found really, really interesting. So this is a left-hand day date, 1803. So an early day date, diamond indices. Not and even the auction says that left-handed day dates or left-handed Rolexes existed. It's not like the Sprite was the first one. They have existed in the past. They're not very common, right? Archie himself, for example, when I spoke to him a few minutes ago on his live stream, he had no idea that this existed. So it was kind of a first for him, and that's what I find like I said, really cool about looking at auctions and watch collecting. For me, it's always been about what's off the beaten path, what's something that's interesting that you just don't see every day, that you watch that you didn't know existed. And so this left hand day date, really, really cool. Looks like it's in white gold. Yep, white gold diamond set, automatic, circa 1968. So it's pretty. I mean, it's 50, 60, 60 years ago. Call it that. You're seeing this watch. That's now in the modern day, you're seeing a left-hand drive being a modern-ish watch. But I mean, Rolex was doing these 50 years ago as well. Estimates very high, between 880 and 120K. That would make sense. Let's read a bit of these notes. Although not unknown, left-hand Rolex watches have historically been exceptionally rare. It is assumed that they were custom-ordered pieces. Yeah, I can imagine that. Such as the reference 4453 that Charlie Chaplin wore that was retailed by Asprey of London. Additionally, over the years, a handful of GMT and Submariners have come to market, but according to research, this is only the second day to a public auction market. So, yeah, I mean, only 2 have hit the public auctions as far as this article is concerned around left-handed day dates. So pretty cool indeed. Yeah, I would assume it's a stamped dial. So is it a stamped pyramid dial? I would assume it's stamped. I don't think Rolex is putting that enough effort, in terms of its production to. I mean, they have done enamel dials. They do it as special one-offs and whatnot, and it's possible. But pyramids, I think, were part of. I mean, they were in the collection years ago, but again, you'd have to order them. It's all like the stone dials, right? Like they're in the collection. You could get, and I found this years ago, where you had an actual order list where you could pick the specific dial, whether you wanted a tiger's eye, you wanted a lapis lazuli, you wanted a pyramid, you wanted whatever different type of dial. You could order it from your Rolex AD, in the 70s and in the 80s. So it's not like it wasn't possible to be ordered. But was it something that's, that they order themselves, that they put in the showcase? Probably not, right? Like stone dials were not necessarily, and they're not even today, right? If you think about it, not really super popular, outside of, again, like certain hype watches, like anything Meteorite with Rolex right now is extremely hot. Think of the Meteorite Pepsi, Meteorite Daytona, Meteorite Day Date. I mean, those are always going to be, pretty hot in the modern era. Eisenkeisel Day Date's hot. Very rare. I think I only know one guy who has one. I believe that's George Barkeys. So George, if you're listening, shout out to you. But yeah, I mean, like a modern day, stone dials are very similar to the past. Like not super popular. But this is cool. The left-handed date diamond. I love this. I think it's blue. I think it's a really nice setup. White gold, blue dial, diamond indices left. Like really really cool piece. Like definitely. I mean, look, I'm not big on left-handed watches, but I could definitely get behind that one. A couple of 4-digit Daytonas. Kind of skip through those because we've seen a lot of those in the past. This is a Tiffany Daytona. So for those that are obviously familiar with Tiffany in the modern era with their Patek Philippes, Tiffany also, obviously retailed Rolexes as well. And you do see a Tiffany stamped, I guess this is a pre-Daytona Cosmograph. Cool piece. Reference 626. Oh, so it's 6265 Daytona. Yep. Circa 1978. Very, really cool. So definitely not a pre-Daytona, a Daytona with a Tiffany stamp. So it seems like the Tiffany stamp has taken precedence. I've seen this one before. This Cabaret Lange rectangular watch with a big date. Look, so I mean, definitely early piece for Lange. Pretty cheap estimate here, 8,000 to 16,000 USD. Obviously, a Lange collector would pick this up. Definitely quirky for any Lange collector. Let's have a look at the movement. And look, this I think is what shines about Lange itself. Like you got a movement that's made for the case. You don't have a circular movement, for example. You don't have a circular movement that's small for the case or what have you. With Lange, you're going to get a movement that's made for the case. It's very very well done. Beautiful watch though. Like this watch. It's not for everybody. Not everybody likes rectangular watches. Archie and I looked at a couple of reversals. There's actually a nice reversal in this auction. I'll pull up for you guys that you guys can see. But this one pretty cheap, guys. Like 8 to 16,000 estimate. You're getting a gold rectangular piece and obviously an early Lange that's pretty off the beaten path. I mean, if Archie Luxury, if there's anything that would really yell out Archie Luxury to me, it's this watch, right? It's Archie. Archie, in my opinion, would probably buy this watch. It's quirky. It's a good brand. It's affordable enough that he could say, I have a Lange on the wrist, and he's not breaking the bank spending, 30, 40 plus $1,000. So definitely, for me, this one would definitely have over. But again, Archie has been a little weird lately around he's been a little weird lately around his interest in certain watches. But definitely a piece I would think he would be picking up. Obviously, the new Speedy is in here as well. Not going to pull that up. Too modern, I would say, for what we're looking for. You got some cool RMs in here as well. I'm going to skip over those. Some standard Aquanauts. Nothing really off the beaten path here. Got some pocket watches here. Ladies enamel. This is an open face watch. These are mostly just ladies watches. This is an open face ladies watch. This Cartier was interesting. So, Cloche limited edition gold bell-shaped wristwatch, circa 1990. So, estimate of $20,000 to $40,000. Interesting design. Obviously, not everybody's cup of tea, but definitely quirky from Cartier. Solid, looks like solid gold. Let's have a look at this. Auction notes here. So the term cloche derives from French, meaning bell, cloche, serving as the muse for this distinctive Cartier design. In 1920, the first documented cloche-shaped piece emerged. So this is designed as after a bell-shaped design, or called the cloche because it looks like a bell. Taco Bell, boys and girls, Taco Bell over here. What do you guys think of the Cartier Taco Bell, the cloche? Tony the Conductor, this is on Sotheby's website. Sotheby's is doing an auction on June 5th. So it's in 3 days in New York. So I'm just kind of looking at a couple of the pieces here that are a bit quirky. Archie did his live stream on the Archie Luxury live stream channel. So if you're listening to this channel, the Archie Luxury channel, and you are not subscribed to the Archie Luxury live stream channel, please go and subscribe there. That's where Archie does his daily live streams. He's actually sleeping right now, but he didn't get a chance to cover the auction. So I thought, hey, for the punters, I would just go through a couple pieces that I dig. Obviously, for Tony the Conductor, seeing this website, is definitely showing him, a place to look at for some watches if he finds it interesting. So yeah, we'll just continue here. So definitely an interesting piece from Cartier, designed after a bell, the Taco Bell, the cloche. Anything else that's interesting in here? They're going to say, following swiftly in 1921, platinum and diamond set of cloche style wristwatch made its debut. So again, obviously it's got a historic historic look to it. In the 1990s, Cartier unveiled a limited number production of this model, with this particular piece being numbered 85 of 200. All right, that doesn't really mean anything. I mean, cool piece. Estimate for $20,000 to $40,000. You got to be really looking for something Cartier chic to buy that, in my opinion. Now, this is interesting, ladies and germs. A Cartier Reverso. I actually didn't see this. And I should have brought this one up with Archie earlier today, because I brought up another Reverso that's later in the auction, but this is an interesting one. So for those that don't know, the Reverso has been licensed out to other brands. So it's not just JLC that's made the Reverso. And while they were obviously, the brand that brought it out, you could say, Patek Philippe has sold Reversos. Not many of them. I think there's under 10 for a fact. And I believe there's one that's in the Patek Philippe Museum. But and you can see here obviously on the screen that Cartier seemingly has a Reverso as well. So let's read through this one. I've not actually seen this before. Pretty cheap estimate, like 10 to 20,000 on this piece. Okay, so Reverso, a rare stainless steel rectangular reversible wristwatch, circa 1940. Okay, let's check out the pictures. I mean, this is definitely a Reverso. Like, you can see the Art Deco design. I mean, I've owned a few Reversos in my time. I mean, it's definitely a Reverso, that's for sure. Pretty cool, guys. Pretty cool. Actually, this is actually something I'm actually pretty interested in. Patent. Okay. Interesting. All right, catalog note. While the Reverso is a revered icon today, it is not always so closely linked with JLC. In fact, JLC ceased production of the Reverso in 1940. That's actually true. The Reverso became kind of like, it became dead for a long time. Like, very, very popular in the Art Deco, the 30s, Art Deco times. After a while, I think it was in the 50s and onwards. It says that it was discontinued in 48, but 50s and onwards, it seemed to have fallen out of style and really didn't have its resurgence, I believe, until the 90s. So it says it was discontinued in 48, and in the years leading up to that, it is uncommon to see reversal models. It is not uncommon to see reversal models with different names affixed to the dial. Some said Hermes. This one says Cartier. Cartier was also okay. So this is okay. So is this the JLC Reverso that was retailed by Cartier, or was this a Cartier watch that they licensed? I don't know. Cartier was also closely linked with Jaeger-LeCoultre, thanks to the formation of the European watch and clock company between Louis Cartier and Edmond Jaeger. Many of the highest-grade Cartier movements were produced under this name from within the JLC factories and are among the most sought-after watches from the brand's early years. The present Reverso is one such example of that collaboration. Cartier retailed several JLC watches in the mid-20th century, and this is one of them. Okay, so it was a retailed JLC watch. So it was not a Cartier watch that was licensed, from JLC, meaning that Cartier made a production watch. This seems to be a JLC Reverso that was retailed at Cartier that is stamped Cartier. The case de noces watch is a 1940s example, but is likely not case until the 1960s or 70s when the Reverso model saw a resurgence. Okay, so the case de noces watch is a 40s example, although it was not likely case until the 60s or 70s when the Reverso model saw a resurgence, thanks to the Italian retailer Corvo. The dial features beautiful polished brigade numerals and railroad track. Yeah, so, okay. Part of this is super exciting to me. Part of this is a bit sketch, and I'll tell you what's sketch. So, not to say, hey, Strider, how's it going? What's up? Mikey Cassio GTR. We're actually doing a live stream on the main channel today. It's a channel I haven't done a live stream on in a few years, but I thought, you know what, Archie just finished on the live stream, so why not do about an hour on the main show before I grab my my coffee? Yeah, Scratch, I find this pretty interesting, man. Like, so what I find a bit sketch about this watch, like, I like this watch a lot. I mean, price point too is pretty, like, I mean, estimate 10 to 20. I mean, I don't know if there's any bids on this watch. Maybe there's not. Look, I can imagine that this is going to go for a song because, like, I mean, it's a Reverso, right? Like, not everybody's into Reversos. I mean, the Cartier vibe, I guess you could say, but I mean, you're talking about a 40s watch. It's probably going to be small. It's size 40 by 24. Okay. It may not be for everybody, this piece. And so, for me, it's like, okay, pretty cheap price, but when they're talking about, well, the watch is saying it's a 40s watch, then potentially cased in the 60s and 70s. You know, they're talking about, you know, another retailer popularizing it. Well, I mean, when was this watch actually sold? When was it cased? Like, you know, oftentimes, and we've seen this in the past, right? Like, you'll have a movement that's made for a certain watch and then it's recased into something else. I believe that's what happened with Patek Philippe's first perpetual calendar wristwatch. I believe the movement was made for another watch, and then I believe it was recased into the watch that it was sold for. And that was not the first serially produced perpetual calendar. That was the first perpetual calendar by Patek Philippe. So you do see recasings, but not a lot of like information. It just says it just says the case denotes this watch as a 1940s example, but it was likely not cased until the early 60s or 70s when it saw a resurgence. That doesn't mean that it's like, you know, there's anything wrong with it. But I mean, there's no box, there's no papers. We're kind of just going off what these guys are saying. Yeah, I mean, cool piece. I would buy it because it's super cheap and take the risk. But yeah, for me, definitely interesting, guys. Like I definitely dig it. I definitely find it as a cool piece and a piece that I think would be really good to add into the collection if you're looking for something quirky. Let's keep going along here, guys. Finding other pieces. Obviously, another Reverso here on the left, modern Reverso. This is the 1931 Triple 1931 in Rouge. Okay, if you want to see some Archie luxury watches, this one has no reserve Archie, so you can go and bid whatever you want. But if you're ever looking for an Archie luxury watch of all Archie luxury watches, it would be this Audemars Piaget, as he used to call it, Audemars Piguet piece here. Like, it's called the AP Cobra white gold bracelet, circa 1990. Definitely an Archie luxury piece. Archie, if you're listening, this would definitely have your name on it. Look, not my cup of tea, not the cup of tea of most people. Why it's Archie's cup of tea is its estimate is between 5 and 10 grand. You know, he'd probably be a buyer at the, you know, probably 1,500 to 2,000 range, I would say. But if you're looking for an Archie luxury watch, that's an Archie luxury watch if I ever saw one myself. Modern stuff. I mean, this Piaget is interesting, but you know, I've already shown you a few horrific looking watches, so I think we'll continue. Got this Pasha C timer, pretty obscure looking, 15,000 to 30,000 modern watch, circa 2010. Again, not everybody's cup of tea. Pretty ugly watch in my opinion. Let's keep on looking, guys. Obviously, you got your 5711. Your standard, you know, we'll call them the usual suspects at auctions, guys. Your 5711 and a number of other pieces here. Yeah, Watch Reporter as well would probably, yeah, between Archie and Watch Reporter, they're very similar to those two guys, right? Like, you know, in terms of their tastes in watches, I would say Strider. I would agree with you. We do have, and look, this was another watch that Archie really loved. He had the 6006. This is the 6000. This is in rose gold. For those that, you know, are aware of Patek Philippe, their modern lineup, the 6007 is their current version. So they started this series actually with the 5000 series. It was supposed to be a more contemporary Calatravas, you could say. Then you move to this watch, the 6000. So you can see very busy dial. You've got a sub-seconds, you know, at the, I believe this is the 4 o'clock mark. You got a sub-second either between 4 and 5 or at the 4 o'clock mark, I would say. So it's using the 240 movement, which is a revered movement at Patek Philippe. It's really reserved for a lot of their high-end stuff. I mean, their perpetual calendar uses the 240. Some of their perpetual calendars use the 240 movement, World Times, and other pieces. Definitely a cool watch. Just these 6000, 6006s, you know, they're just a bit busy for me. Like the AutoZone 6007, obviously, in my opinion, has brought it back together a little bit. But you know, these watches were a little too busy. Now Archie loved them because, you know, it's the effect of a busy dial on a dress watch. When you have a busy dial on a dress watch, it makes it more sporty. It makes it more, you know, it actually looks cooler in person when you see a busy dress watch, because you're not just getting a very, you know, plain Jane like every other dress watch, right? There's something to it. There's some substance to it, and that's why like really busy dials on dress watches are being, you know, they're becoming quite popular these days. I watched a video on the Perpetual Patek series, so if you guys haven't checked that out, it's on the Watchbox Studios channel. Brian Goldberg and Tim Mosso do this series where they do either collection reviews of Patek Philippe's or they do specific kind of themes of Patek Philippe. And they brought up a sector dial 5296, and Brian Goldberg says, they weren't popular when they came out, probably circa like called mid 2000s to late 2000s, like maybe early 2010s. Weren't super popular because they were busy. And he said, you know what, at the time, call it mid 2000s, early 2010s, it just wasn't, all the rage. People wanted very classic, very simple dials. You know, Fast forward to today where the sporty look is all the rage. He's like, you know what? Those would be wildly popular right now. Similar to watches like the 6006 or the 6006 that went after this. Like, I would say are watches that completely, would work in today's day and age. Modern collector now. This watch, let's see what their estimate is. Like, estimate between 12 and 20. Like, I mean, I think this is a bit of a low estimate, like 12,000 for Patek Philippe, 6,000. I mean, unless they're missing a bunch of stuff. Seems like it has the certificate of origin. I mean, 12,000 is a steal if you can get it. And obviously, like I mentioned here, it's got the historic 240 movement, Patek Philippe seal. So it's post, I believe, 2009. Does not have the Geneva seal. Yeah, guys, looks like a full set. I mean, it's got the pusher as well. Like, it's got an extra strap, got the hang tag. Like, can't get more full set than that. And yeah, I mean, 12 to 24, that's a steal, guys. Like, if that actually goes that low, like that's a really good price. All right, we got some world times. Maybe we'll keep moving it along because there are some interesting pieces that I did want to see. And look, guys, I'm not going to stop on every watch. I'm going to stop on certain watches that interest me. If there is a watch that interests you in the chat, feel free to definitely post it. I'm pulling up all the chats. Jim Millett says Tim also doing a collector conversation with Archie. How cool would that be? So Jim, Archie's met Tim, I believe, in New York. Not because Archie went to Watch Time New York last year in October. I don't believe he met Tim at the VIP event because Tim was, I believe, he was sick, so he didn't come to Watch Time New York. I believe he met Tim either I think he met him the year before. I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe he's met Tim also. But they obviously know each other. They obviously know each other well enough. And yeah, look, I think it would be great. I think, like, obviously Tim's knowledge. I mean, Tim's been around, like, watch YouTube just almost as long as Archie has. Like, he's been around for a long time. Tim is very well known in the in the watch YouTube space, and definitely a guy who's he's been influential just as much, I would say, as Archie has in that sense. So I think it'd be great for those two to actually have a discussion, because I would say that his discussion with Archie would definitely surpass any interview that Tim did with, for example, TGV. I think that it'd be a lot more fruitful and a lot better of a discussion. Tim is a big fan of Archie. Yeah, I know they have mutual respect, right? Archie is also a big fan of Tim's, Jim, as well, right? Like, mutual respect between the two. Two guys that definitely have put in the work when it comes to watch YouTube that have influenced everybody, right? Like, everybody's watched Tim's videos when they're looking for a watch or they wanted to get some info, right? Like, the library on Watchbox Studios, between what they used to have with Watch You Want, I'm assuming, and what they have along with Watchbox, like, that library of just watch reviews is just, it's, to me, is very, very it's very, very cool. We got David N. Thanks for logging in. Nice to see you, David N. with the 5396 in slate gray, a Canadian viewer as well that I know. All right, so we do have up on the screen a piece unique from Kari Voutilainen, white gold, a decimal minute repeating wristwatch, power reserve indicator. All right, so we got a minute repeater, power reserve, estimate between $250,000 and $500,000. I would say that it's a piece unique, minute repeater. Could probably go at the high end of the estimate. I had the chance to meet Kari Voutilainen actually myself at Watch Time New York. Really, really nice guy. Me and Kelsowitz went up to him, had a chat with him, got to take a photo with the guy. Super nice. Got to try on, I think it was his 28, the Vaint 8 watch that he has. He had it on display there. Got to try it on. So this piece is obviously classic Kari Voutilainen design. And you got your teardrop lugs, which isn't for everybody, guys. Obviously, you can see this actuator on the left. This indicates a minute repeater. You've got I don't know if they call these palm style hands, because they're not really, the Breguet style, the palm style. I think they're more Clyde. I don't know if Clyde would call these cathedral. They're not really cathedral. There was a name he had specifically for these, because he used these on the Lyrique #1. Roman numerals, Roman numeral indices. This is a white gold piece, obviously handmade. Kari Voutilainen handmade. Looks like there's a sapphire cabochon or sapphire similar. This is interesting, obviously. In terms of design, very similar to Cartier. Bit of a thick watch, obviously being a minute repeater. Let's look at the movement. All right. Manual wind, minute repeater movement. You got internal angle here on the finishing. Hard to this photo's not super great. Yeah. Piece unique. Very nice. Very expensive. Yeah. Cool piece. I like Kari Voutilainen. Not for everybody. It's a design that a lot of folks really dislike, but I really dig them. Jim Millett, I go on live chats with Tim on his Facebook group once per week, and Archie's come up a few times. Hey Jim, look, if you do go on and Tim is interested, just let me know. I help Archie on his shows, either doing live streams and or watch talk. So just I'm in the group as well, Jim. So I can find you in the group, and we can chat up. Hey, look, if Tim's got time and he wants to do some watch talk with Archie, we are more than happy to host him on the Archie Luxury channel. It would be great, or I'm sure Archie would go on to. And Archie's visited, actually. He was recently in Hong Kong, and he visited Watchbox over in Hong Kong as well. So that'd be great if we could get that set up. David N, I was trying to imitate Tim Masso. Yep, no, your 5396 is cool, man. It's cool. So like I said, Kari Voutilainen's not for everybody. This watch, I think a lot of folks really digged when it came out. The Swiss Alp watch from H. Moser and Company. I know the Gin Tingler was very much a fan of this watch when it came out. Also, obviously, movement made for the case, pretty cool. Limited to 20 pieces. Estimates, I don't know if they're lowballing these estimates here. 15 to 20,000 to generate interest. Limited edition DLC coated rectangular wristwatch. I know the Gin was very much into this watch when it came out. You got cool leaf style hands. Look, it has its appeal, I would say, in its modern era. I think over time, it looks like a Apple Watch, and so I think it had its appeal when it first came out. I think afterwards it's been, I don't know, to me, I wouldn't be necessarily buying this myself, but I know that there are some people that dig the design, that find it cool, that like the trolling that Moser does often enough on when they sell their pieces, or they create pieces that get a bit of shock and awe. I'll definitely check it out, Jim. But yeah, look, if you talk to Tim and Tim's interested, we're more than happy to host him, or go on his platform and do a collab with our good friend Tim Masso. All right, so let's check out some more of these auction watches. Like I said, I'm gonna pull up stuff that really is just going to appear, interesting to me as I scroll through this auction. I really think that this is what's wrong with Panerai, guys. Like a Rattrapant, they're doing an 8-day split, an 8-day split second, chronograph. And again, estimate 20 to 40,000. That's cheap for a split second in pink gold. Obviously a lot of gold here, but I really think this is where Panerai, look, if you like these kind of pieces, if you like splits, if you want to get a Rattrapant, you want something, on the, I guess you can pick this up. But really, I think Panerai has kind of lost the plot. People don't buy Panerais to have a split second chronograph on their, military-esque, military inspired diver, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Strider says lowball, I reckon, for auctions to suck in bidders. Look, it really depends too, Strider, whether, because some of these auctions have, a reserve. Some of these are listed with no reserve like that. I think that AP I showed you guys potentially had no reserve. So they know that there's going to be just there's not going to be a ton of massive interest, or in some of those watches. So they're just like, hey, we'll go no reserve. And with no reserve, we'll just ensure that it's going to be, we'll get what we can get. On this watch, for example, it seems like there is a reserve. And it's kind of like, if your estimate is between 20 and 40, taking a Rattrapant Panerai, yellow gold at 20K, yeah, it's good bang per buck. But again, right, it's not really, people don't buy Panerais for that purpose, for complications and stuff. So for me, not really what I would be looking at specifically. When I look at a Panerai, I look at something like this, a Radium. It's got a vintage look on it. So this is a limited edition in platinum, super expensive, 50 to 100K. So let's look at why this is so expensive. Okay, so it's a Rolex sign movement. That makes sense. So for those that don't know, I mean, Panerai has been historically known for their watches having a Bosch movements. So back in the day, obviously during the war and seemingly up to this point, they use Rolex movements, which was a Bosch movements that they purchased from Rolex, pocket watch movements that they made into watches and issued for, obviously, people know, from Italian military frogmen and whatnot. So and Panerai did watches and during a certain period of time that were ETA Bosch movements, right? And I'm a big fan of the ETA PAMs, the 000, the 111, the 112, the 005, like ETA based PAMs, because for me those Bosch movements are super easy to service. I've had a few of them that have had issues, and I've just not had, I've been able to service them relatively quickly and for relatively cheap. My watchmaker is like, yeah, you know, I, um, I apprenticed on those movements, those ETA movements that they have in the PAMs. So he's like, it's super easy for me to service them and find parts and everything. So this one has a Rolex sign movement, and that's why it's obviously, I thought maybe the platinum was pushing the price up a bit, obviously circa 1997. So this was, very much during the Panerai hype in the 90s. Um, let's have a look. Panerai's extensive centennial history. All right, I'm not gonna go through this, but I mean, you can kind of see what the appeal is here. It's just, I know not everybody cares about Pam, so we'll move along here, guys. Um, a lot of weird stuff like this one. Like, I don't even know what a Toledano and Chan is, but a lot of weird stuff. I would assume that this watch got thrown in because whoever's collection this is, not necessarily Sly's collection, but whoever has put in, like maybe that guy with the Kari Voutilainen, piece unique that's going for almost 500,000 said, "Hey, look, Sotheby's, you want me to post my piece unique in here? You need to, sell my other Toledano and Chan watch as well, right?" So that's why you see these kind of sometimes like strange watches that enter into like they enter into these auctions, and you kind of wonder why, like, why are they here? um I'm gonna go kind of past a few of these pieces. I'm gonna go past some of these pocket watches. I don't think pocket watches are anybody's rage today. Yeah, let's find us something interesting. Some interesting Patek Philippe's. I'll pull you guys up. Um, some Calatravas. This Calatrava actually looks very nice. 565 R. Service sealed circa 1950, so it's got small seconds. Beautiful Calatrava with small seconds. Yeah, to me this is really, really nice. You got your Dauphine hands. You got your applied indices. Yeah, very, very clean, and obviously serviced by Patek Philippe. So you're getting something that's very, very nice. So accessories: Patek Philippe service box, service papers, done on 2023. Nicknamed the Grand Calatrava Etanche, reference 565 stands as Patek Philippe's first venture into waterproof watches. Okay. Launched in 1938, it's a 35 millimeter. So this would be considered a jumbo at the time, because they have another auction on a 570, which was just on the left, and I'll pull that up in a second. Um, those were 35 mil as well. Like at the time, I mean, your Calatravas were 31, 33. Like when you had a 35 mil Calatrava, it was an oversized watch. In 1938, tailored to meet the burgeoning interest in outdoor activities. The case was made in two parts, featuring a screw back and an additional dust cover. So it's interesting because in this day and age, this was your quote unquote sports watch. Think about it. It said it was made for outdoor activities, right? A sports watch. Pretty interesting to think that this was a sports watch in the 30s. But yeah, like pretty interesting for me to see as well. Like, a sport, them to call this a sport watch, but very, very beautiful Calatrava. Seems like they obviously it's been serviced, so I'm sure there's been some restoration work, because this is in like amazing condition. Um, Notably, a two-part case was a protective cap made by Taubert, a renowned manufacturer of waterproof cases since the late 19th century. Taubert also supplied cases for other significant Patek models, including the 1463 and the original 96. Pretty cool. Produced until 1952, the present timepiece boasts an 18-karat pink gold case featuring a silvered dial, and was recently serviced by Patek Philippe November of 23. Pretty cool. Yeah, guys, pretty awesome piece in my opinion. Definitely worth checking out if you are into that. Now I'll show you guys the 570 that I spoke about as well. So this is a well-known reference, it's a large size at 35 millimeters, as I described. So considered a jumbo. Obviously, this piece is unrestored, or yeah, I mean, it's got a bit of patina here between the 2 and 3 o'clock indices. So, but I mean, this is what you would expect from watches of this era, right? You're going to see some water damage. As mentioned in the previous like auction article or auction lot, like a lot of these watches were. A lot of these watches were, used for sport. They were used for daily activity, and that's why you see, you know, uh, condensation getting into these pieces. People were using them. They weren't just safe queening them. And when they talk about, oh, these were, dress watches, or they were made for special occasions, necessarily, right? Like you can see, you're not going to get water damage like this from going to cocktail parties, once a month or something like that. Like these were used by people in everyday life, probably. So this was an interesting one. This is a jumping hour hand. So very, very expensive. This is a Calatrava. I showed this to Archie because what was interesting to me was obviously it's a Calatrava, but it had obviously these two protruding actuators on the left, or pushers, you could say, on the left. Gold wristwatch, adjustable jumping hour. Production of the reference 2597 Heure Sautante began in 1957 after Louis Cartier. So Louis Cartier also invented the world time mechanism. After Louis Cartier's 1953 prototype, the Patek Philippe patented the model in 59. With specially designed pushers on the left side of the case, the wearer is able to advance and reverse the hour hand in 1 hour increments, thereby easily and precisely adjusting the watch for different time zones. I see. Okay, so this is what this morning, Archie described this as a travel time watch. And there's a lot of confusion, right? Because when you think travel time, you think home time, and you think you think home time, and obviously your away time, or wherever you are in the world. So here, the watch is a jumping hour, meaning you can actuate going forward or backwards on the hour using the pushers on the left of the case, and theoretically making it easier to travel, by just being able to quickly adjust it. Cool piece. I mean, very, very expensive, $70,000 to $120,000 for Calatrava. I was going to be a serious Patek collector that's going to be buying that, in my opinion. Probably not just going to be a run of the mill guy just looking for the hype. All right, let's keep going here. What else is interesting? This is a sector dial reference 96. So this is the original, the OG Calatrava, of all, and obviously not necessarily in this configuration, guys. When you look at Calatravas, obviously folks are used to a Calatrava with a more elegant, you could say, or simple, you could say case or dial design. This is a sector dial. This was very similar to what I was describing earlier in the 5296, the conversation that Brian Govberg was having with Tim Mosso around, the 5296 sector dial being a more modern, it could be a more modern look because it's a busier dial. This is the original Calatrava, the reference 96 with a sector dial. And yeah, pretty cool to see this in a sector dial. Don't know how rare these are in sector dials necessarily, but I mean, this is going for 30 to 50K. So it's definitely probably not going to be super cheap. And again, this was made in 1914 and sold in 36. So it was, it seems like it's a recase. So again, if you understand what that means, is, at a certain time, there was different ownership with Patek Philippe. When you're talking about 1914, the owners are, I believe, the Philippe family. I don't know if the Patek family was necessarily still there, but the Philippe family, but maybe both, owned the company, or it was owned by the descendants, I guess, of the original founders. And then in the I believe in late 20s, early 30s, the Stern family purchased Patek Philippe, and essentially what they call save the brand. And this is the watch that they talked about, that what they call in their manufacturer. If you ever hear Archie say Le Grand Classique, well, the Grand Classique is the reference 96 Patek Philippe. They call it the Grand Classique because it is the watch that saved the brand. So when you see here, it says the watch was created in 1914, but it was cased in 1936. Well, that's when Patek probably had the movement that was created prior to the acquisition of the company, and then cased it in the Calatrava case that they created. Okay, and that's really what the origin story is of what this watch is. Now that's just my speculation. I haven't read the article, so let's read what it says here in the lot, so that we can get a good sense of whether I'm off my rocker or whether it's the case. So the Patek Philippe Reference 96 was the first watch released by Jean and Henri Stern. Okay, so I was on the right track. Following their acquisition of the brand in 1932. So I said late 20s, early 30s. So I think I was in the right timeline there. For 40 years, for over 40 years, this model remained in Patek's catalog. A testament. Yep, we know that in the Reference 96. The initial first series of the Patek 96 was manufactured until early 1935, distinguished by its utilization of the Le Coultre 12-ling caliber. Interestingly, this caliber was originally produced and mainly for gondola pendant watches in the 1920s and 10s and 20s. So pretty cool. So yeah, essentially this is exactly as it described. It had a movement that was created before the Sterns owned the company, and they created the Calatrava, the 96, the Grand Classique, the Calatrava that Archie Luxury loves. If you're a fan of this channel, if you're listening, you definitely know what a Calatrava is. This is the original Calatrava. Pretty cool dial, sector dial. I love it. Obviously a small watch and definitely pricey, I would say, in this estimate. We have this rare pink gold split second chronograph where it made in 1940. Beautiful piece. Obviously going for big time money. Don't really need to cover this. Very, very. Look, not everybody's a big fan of kind of this rose on rose look. I like it personally. When JJ got his rose on rose Octolune at Pigeon, I thought it was cool. Not everybody likes rose on rose. Obviously, everyone kind of likes the white gold on rose, but rose on rose to me is pretty cool. LV, what are your thoughts on the movements on the 96s? I believe they put in a different movement in the last few years of production. I'm not sure about the last few years of production, but they talked about in this article how some of them have the 12-ling Le Coultre movements on them. Not too familiar with the later production models, LV. So if you want, if you know the movement specifics, let me know. I'm not sure at what point did they switch movements out, or if they switched movements during the entire, because obviously we saw that it used a different, like a Le Coultre Eboche movement, and then it may have changed into potentially another Eboche movement, maybe an in-house movement. I'm not sure necessarily on that one. All right, let's get back to it. Obviously this is big time money. It's interesting, but not super, super interesting. You've got a beautiful perpetual counter chronograph, 2499, one of the greatest perpetual counter chronographs of all time, circa 1977. Estimate $500,000 to almost $750,000. This is kind of, kind of looking at the case on the side, just from the side look is important to kind of see, because for anybody looking to buy a perpetual counter chronograph, I had the opportunity to wear or try on a 3970 perpetual counter chronograph. So that's circa 80s, you could say. And this is kind of similar to what I saw. It was a small watch. It was 36 mil, similar to the 3940. However, the difference was the 3940 was very slim, and so it fit very nice on the wrist when it was slim. When you have a chunky, kind of a stubby watch like this, it doesn't sit very well on the wrist. And if it's small, like it really doesn't give off. It's not a very pleasing feel on the wrist. So never actually tried on a 2499, but like I said, my experience in a 3940 wasn't exactly the best. But this is definitely, obviously an icon. Everybody loves this watch. Beautiful configuration, 3rd series, big money. I find this one really, really cool. Couple of other pieces I'm trying to find here in the auctions. Very, very early Explorer 6140. Pretty cool. Estimate 20 to 40,000. Very, very new Explorer or early Explorer. You've got your Mercedes hands. You got your big lollipop seconds. You've got Explorer on the dial. You got your 369 Explorer configuration. Pretty cool. 20 to 40K, not bad. Let's see here. We got a Kanger GMT Master. This is a Kanger. I'm assuming it's on the case back here. Yep, the Kanger case back, because they don't do it on the dial anymore. I'm assuming on modern Kanger dials, so that's pretty decent. More Kangers here as well. You got a 16710 Kanger. You got a Kanger Hulk. This is cool. A Kanger Hulk would be nice to. That'd be a cool piece to own, I would guess. Got some more Kanger. It seems like this guy's offloading a lot of his Kanger collection. Trying to find another piece that I was looking at here. And again, guys, sorry if I'm scrolling past stuff that you guys find interesting. I'm just looking for a few things. This one was interesting to me. This is a Panama Canal modern-ish, I guess you could say, pre-ceramic. This is a Panama Canal commemoration piece from, it says 1969. Yep. So this is a 16610. So it's this pre-ceramic 5-digit. How's that? Is that the, yeah, it still has a sticker on the back. Yep. So it's got this little commemoration of the Panama Canal being transferred from the United States to Panama circa 1999. Again, pretty rare. It's not going to mean everything to everybody. Very high estimate, half a million. Sorry, 50K to 100K. A high estimate here, guys. But again, it's not. I mean, it's not going to mean everything to any. Like, it's not always going to mean something to everybody, right? Like when it just says Panama Canal. Like if you're from Panama, I would assume that this would mean something to you. But to the rest of the world, I mean, I don't know. You know, you got a Tiffany stamp 1680, pretty cool right here, guys. Again, as I mentioned, Tiffany did retail Rolexes, and so did Cartier. You can find Cartier stamps, Submariners, out there as well, oftentimes in the auction. All right, so this is a special reconnaissance regiment. This is, you know, we've talked about these on the channel a little bit. These are military, like they're. It's hard to say if you can call them military watches. I mean, they were offered for purchase to military members, whether it was soldiers, officers, what have you. Not sure if they were combat issued pieces or if they were just kind of commemorative pieces that you could buy as part of a regiment. But this was for the Special Reconnaissance Regiment in the UK military. I've seen, I believe BQ Watches has one of these for sale as well. So they do come up, you know, here and there for auction and whatnot. And yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool piece. And yeah, honestly, I would say the last piece I want to talk about today before I wrap, just want to do a quick hour stream for you guys. It was a Zerograph. So for those that haven't seen this watch specifically, the Zerograph is Rolex's first in-house chronograph. I believe this is also yeah, I know for a fact this is the first in-house chronograph. There's also another first on this. I don't know if it's related to the oyster part of it, whether it's a chronograph and an oyster. Let's just look at the auction, but definitely because they even write it here as historically important, right? So it's a flyback chronograph. It's from 1942. Estimate 50 to 100K. I know for a fact this is the first in-house Rolex chronograph because I know this watch, but there's a bit more in the first here. So in the pantheon of rare vintage Rolex wristwatches, there are a few that were made in as few numbers. There are few that were made in as few numbers as a reference 3346 Zerograph. It is thought that the reference was made as an experiment by the brand, and as such, the model never made its way into regular production, the Rolex category, or any period advertising. It is thought that they were made as prototypes sent to the Rolex distributors for assessment or review, but given the minuscule numbers made and the lack of information from Rolex, no one really knows. One of the reasons may be the limitation of the new single button chronograph function in contrast to conventional chronographs, which we're accustomed to today, which have the two feature buttons, single or mono pusher style chronograph. All right, so why is the reference 3346 important? In short, the reference was the brand's very first oyster chronograph. So as I mentioned that earlier, the very first Rolex in-house chronograph movement, as well as the very first Rolex reference to feature a rotating bezel. That's what I missed. It's the rotating bezel. You know, so that's cool. So it has a rotating, it's the first rotating bezel. It's a first Rolex chronograph in a case, an oyster case, I'm assuming, and the first in-house Rolex chronograph. So if you think about it, when you're talking about an in-house chronograph, you know, people think about like, oh, well, when they went from the Zenith, you know, the Zenith Daytona to the in-house movement, and a lot of modern folks think that was the first, but no, it wasn't actually. It was the Zerograph. So definitely historically important. Not everybody knows about this. And again, guys, this is why I like reviewing the auctions, why I like, you know, looking at the auctions. I think that, you know, outside of like the sea of modern hyped Rolexes that you find between, you know, like Hulks and Pepsis and Daytonas and Nautiluses from Patek Philippe and Aquanauts and all that hype stuff, right? Like you find stuff like this that's super interesting, that pieces that, you know, a lot of folks haven't seen ever in their life. I mean, think about it, right? Archie Lecture has been collecting for 2-3 decades. I show him a watch on this auction, a left-hand drive, date 1803 from, you know, whatever, the 60s. He's like, shit, I've never seen one of these before. And I didn't even know they existed, right? Like that's what's cool is you can bring up stuff every single day that a collector who's been collecting for 3 decades, you know, has come across many watches that many of us have never come across and be like, wow, like, you know, I never knew that this necessarily existed. So really, really cool, guys. So if you guys want to check this out, you know, there was a lot of questions around like where is this site? You know, where's it coming from? This is the Important Watches auction at Sotheby's. It is going to be live at 9 Eastern in New York in 3 days. Definitely check out the lots. I just sorted them by lot number. You can sort them by estimate, high to low, if you want to see all the heavy hitters here. A lot of Richard Milles, a lot of Patek Philippe's. If you want, there's Kari Voutilainen, as I showed. So definitely cool, very cool auction, guys. Definitely recommend you guys check it out. But I just want to do a quick show this morning. Want to do a bit of watch talk, see how you guys are doing, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.